Today's stuff we're going to be learning is Chullin Daf Tzadi Bet. We're going to continue the drashot that we had started. We were talking about the angel. When the angel said to Yaakov, let me go, because it's now morning. Where was he rushing to, right? Yaakov said, are you a thief? What, right? Who are you hiding from? He said, no, I have to go say Shira. From there we got into this whole difference between the Shira of the angels and the Shira of the humans, and how the humans are better than the angels, and how the humans can say God's name after saying already 2 words, where the angels have to wait to say 3. So we ended with this question, what about Baruch? Baruch Kavod Hashem Imkomo, right? We saw with Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh Hashem Tzvaot, they have to say 3 words. But Baruch Kavod Hashem Imkomo, the angels say it after only 2. So, Baruch Ofanim Hu Da'am Relay. So they say, Baruch, that's said by the Ofanim, not by the angels. It's a different category of angels. They're on a higher level, or beings that are above, and they're on a higher level than the angels, and that's why they're allowed to say it after just 2 words. Or a second answer, after they say Kadosh, 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 then already after they've already said those 3 words, they can say God's name, and then after Baruch Kavod, they can also say Hashem's name, because they've already said all the words before. Going back to the angel, now we're quoting a pasuk from Hosea, where it says, Vayasal el malach vayuchal, Vayasal from the language of, and he became a sar. That's the way they're going to understand this pasuk, to the angel, Vayuchal, and he beat him. Bacha vayitchanelo. He cried to him and he begged him. Now, there's a lot of he's in this pasuk. It's not here clear who is who. It's not clear who became in charge of who became the officer over the other. But when it says in the pasuk in Breshit, Ki sarita Elohim ve'im anashim vatuchal, right? You fought against Elohim, and right, Elohim usually means like a important people, usually means judges or something like that, and with people. In a minute we're going to see how it translates as judges, and with people, and you prevailed. So Yaakov nasa sar l'malach, right? Those were God's words to Yaakov after what happened. So, or the angel's words, right? It's the angel's words to Yaakov. So now it says Haveomer, right? Yaakov nasa sar l'malach. So Yaakov became the officer over the malach. Bacha vayitchanelo, who cried and begged. Eni odami bacha lamit, right? In a sense, could be Jacob, who cried out of pain, right? And begged him to stop. Or it could have been the angel. What was the angel crying about? Well, kashuomer vayomer shalcheni, haveomer malach bacha liYaakov. The angel said, send me off because it's the morning, meaning he was begging Yaakov. He was crying and he wanted to go and he needed Yaakov to let him go. Okay. Kisarita im Elohim ve'im anashim. So now we're going to darshan this, and this is going to get us off on a whole long tangent, because you fought with Elohim, which again could mean God, but also could mean important people, and with humans. Amar Rabba, remez ramazlo. This was an illusion that the angel was alluding to. She'atidim shnei sarim latzeit mimenu. That there's going to be 2 great leaders that are going to come out of Yaakov. Rosh golah shebeBavel v'nasi shebe'eretz Yisrael. Right? There's going to be in the future always sitting at the head, well, not always, but for this particular time that we're learning about the Gemara, there's going to be a head in Babylonia and a head in Israel, right? A Nasi in Israel and the Rosh Golah, the Resh Galuta in Babylonia. Now, you think that sounds like a good thing. Well, Mikan Ramazlo Galut. He basically told him that in the future there's going to be an exile, and they're not going to always be in the land of Israel. If we're already talking about these rulers being in right, the Resh Galuta in Babylonia, and the one in Eretz, and the Nasi in Eretz Israel. So we're now going to jump to drashot on one pasuk in the dream that the Sarah Mashkim, the butler, has this dream, and in the dream there's Bagefen Shlosha Sarigim. Okay, so let's get the English translation exactly. Okay, in the sorry, I'm just going to look for it. Right. So the vine, there were 3 branches. Okay, the rest of the pasuk is, and as it was budding, I'm just going to read you in English right now, its blossoms shot forth. We'll see all these words inside in Hebrew. As it was budding, its blossoms shot forth, and its clusters brought forth new grapes. That's the dream of the butler. Now the question is, what's the meaning of this dream, and why is the butler telling this to Yosef? Okay, and what we're going to see is that this was something that was said to Yosef, really. His dream was to give Yosef strength while he was in jail. Okay? So we're now going to see, what is this? What is this referencing? The first 2 answers are going to reference just these 3, the 3 branches. But then we're going to see the rest of the Pasuk Darshan did 6 other ways. Okay, all those words in the pasuk that I quoted. Amar Rav Chia bar Abba Marav, and you'll see the connection in a second. Elu shlosha sarei geim hayotzim Yisrael b'chol dor v'dor. In every generation, there's going to be three main leaders. Pa'amim sheshnayim kan ve'echad be'eretz Yisrael. Sometimes there'll be two here in Babylonia and one in Israel. And at other times, pa'amim sheshnayim be'eretz Yisrael ve'echad kan. Sometimes there'll be two in Israel, right? The center was in Tiberia, and there was a center in Jerusalem. Okay, so sometimes, or in the Galilee. Okay, there was sometimes, right, two leaders there and one in Babylonia. Sometimes there were two leaders in Babylonia and one there. Especially like in the time of the Gemara, obviously there were more in Babylonia and there were centers there. Also in the time of the Gaonim, there's two in Israel, two in Babylonia and one in Israel. Okay. Anyway, this is what, and it's supposed to give. I think the idea is to give Yosef hope that in the future there will be leaders coming out of the Jewish people. Yehivu Rabbanan Einayu. So the rabbis looked at when they heard Rav say this interpretation. But Rabbana Ukva, Rabbana Nechemia b'nei Barte de Rav, the grandsons of Rav, they were the sons of the daughter of Rav. These two, Rabbana Ukva, Rabbana Nechemia, who were considered great leaders. Rava Amal. Elu shlosha sarei goyim shemlandim zchut al Yisrael b'chol dor v'dor. This is very interesting, and I would say very relevant for our times. There's always three heads of nations that are out to bat. They go out to bat for the Jewish people, right? This is always something particularly we're struggling with these days, like who's on our side. But according to this, there's always three, right? This is different. This is from the outside, not three rulers from within, but three rulers from without who help the Jewish people. Third interpretation. Gefen ze ha'olam. Okay, the Gefen, now we're going to darshan each and every word in this pasuk. Gefen is the whole world. Shlosha sarigim is, right, the Gefen, then there's three branches coming out of it. Ze Avraham, Yitzchak, v'Yaakov. This is going back to the past. Right, this is giving strength to Yosef. Right, so first, the leaders of the Jewish people, the leaders of other nations. Now we're going to have our forefathers. Okay? The Zchut Avod, as we call them. V'hike porachat al tanitza, that's the next part, which is, right, it's budding, right? Elu ahimahot, okay, the mothers. It's not just the forefathers, it's also the mothers. Hivshilu eshkelot, right, the Sarah Rivka Rachav Aleah. Hivshilu eshkelot ha'anavim, elu hashvatim. And then from them came, right, this is all about the fruits, right, the fruits of their family are the tribes. Amar lo Rabbi Yeshua, and that was supposed to give Yaakov strength, Yosef strength. Amar lo Rabbi Yeshua, what? You think they're trying to show Yosef what was? That's not important. You want hope? You can't look in the past, you have to look in the future, right? There's a good debate here. Is it the strength of the past that gives us hope? Is it the future, right? Obviously, it's both. Ella, so Rabbi Yeshua explains, Ella gefen ze Torah. So he's now going to the future. So you're going to get the Torah. There's three branches. That's Moshe, Aaron, and Miriam. Again, we have the women in here as important characters. He keporachat al tanitza, budded. That's Elo Sanhedrin. Right in the end, they ended up with a whole nation, with a Sanhedrin. Hivshilu eshkalot anavim. What are the eshkalot anavim, the grapes? Elo tzadikim shebachol dor v'dor. We're going to talk a lot about them soon. These are the righteous people in every generation. Amar Rabban Gamliel. Rabban Gamliel says, what? We still need the Moda'i. That's Rabbi Elazar Moda'i. Because he has all this talking about one place. What one place is he talking about? The temple. Okay, Rabbi Elazar Moda'i Omer, Gefen ze Yerushalayim. Jerusalem. Shlosha sarigim ze mikdash melech v'kohen gadol. It's the temple, the king, and the kohen gadol. These are the young ones of the Kohanim that do the work. What are the anavim? Oh, well, they turn them into wine. Those are the libations. So this is all about worship of God, right? It's all about, that's the future. The future is the Jews are going to worship God, and that's going to sustain them. It's really about what is sustaining us. Is it the past, the Zchut Avod? Is it the future, the leaders that are going to come? Is it the future, the worship that the Jews are going to do? Or number 6, Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi Mokim Laba Matanot. He says it's all about the gifts of God. That's what's going to sustain us. That God is always bestowing upon us gifts. What kind of gifts? Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, Gefen zo Torah. Okay, that's one of our biggest gifts. Getting the Torah. Shlosha sarigim ze be'er amud anan uman. This was in the desert. What sustained us? Okay, the be'er and the man are the food, the water and the food. The amud anan is the protection from our enemies. So the what budded is the bikurim that we bring to the temple, and the eshkolot anavim is the libations that we bring to the temple. You might say those aren't gifts of God to us, those are gifts of us to God, but no, because they come from the gifts that God gave us of the land and the plentifulness of the land, and therefore we give back to God from those gifts. Okay, Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba Amal, seventh explanation. Gefen elu Yisrael, v'cheinu omer, gefen mimitzrayim tasiyah. Okay, there's a pasuk that says that the gefen, which is the Jews, are going to be plucked out of Egypt like the gefen. So gefen is the Jews. So the three branches are the three holidays where we worship God. Talking about blossoming, God is telling Yosef, this is the time to start having children and to start creating a nation. And that's what happens, right? The beginning of Sefer Shemot describes that they really did multiply. The time has come for the future redemption. Okay, for the redemption from Egypt he's talking about. But it's talking about all about the Geulah. This is a sign to Yosef, it's in the present. This is the time. Take advantage. Get ready. Right, here's an image of God as a warrior. All my clothes are dirty from war. It's a nevuah. It's a prophecy describing God in Sefer Yeshayahu as a warrior full of blood and dirty from the war. Okay, and God is basically saying, I'm coming to save you. This is the hope is there's going to be a redemption. Mitzrayim is now going to drink the cup of what we call the poison or the bad that's going to come to them. Okay, the bad is going to start coming to Egypt. And in fact, they say about this kosat tarela, hainu da amarava, this is where Rava said, shlosha kosot amorot Mitzrayim lama. Why are these three cups associated with what three cups is Mitzrayim going to drink? This is going to show throughout the ages, Egypt is going to be destroyed in three occasions. Echad sheshatat b'imei Moshe, that's the one we're referring to here. Echad sheshatat b'imei Paro Necho, this is in the time of Yoshiyahu, when Nebuchadnezzar conquers Egypt. Ve'echad she'atida lishtot in kol ha'omot, and in the future, in the big battle in the future, they're going to be conquered. Amalei Rabbi Abba le Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba. After Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba says this, Rabbi Abba says to him, Ki darish lehu Rav lahane krai ba'agadah, when Rava darshans these in his Agadah class, or his, right, when he darshans Agadah, kavatach darish lehu, he darshans these psukim like you did. Okay? Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Levi. Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish now comes with the final interpretation, and this maybe is the most powerful of all. Okay, so again, if we summarize, we have the present Jewish leaders, right, that are always in every generation. We have the present non-Jewish leaders that are always in every generation. We have the past, we have the future, we have the temple, the worship of the people of God, then we have God's gifts to the people. God is always kind of with us, and then we have this idea of redemption. Okay, both past and future redemption. Now, the last one, Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. Uma zo ki gefen nimshala. The nation of the Jewish people is like a gefen. How so? Like a vine. Zmorot sheba elu baalei batim. Okay, the branches of it are the baalei batim. Those are the people who do chesed. They're not the biggest Talmidei Chachamim. They're the regular baalei batim. Some people say the whole big deal is that they do chesed. Eshkolot sheba elu Talmidei Chachamim. Okay, the fruits are obviously, right, in their world, the Talmidei Chachamim are the most important. Alin sheba elu amei haaretz. The leaves. Now let's think about the leaves. The leaves protect, if you know the way a vine works, right? There's big leaves and those cover the grapes to protect them. So that's the Amei Ha'aretz. Very interesting. Knot sheba, those are those very swirly things that really have no purpose, and that's why they're called Elu Rekanim Shebi Yisrael, the empty people. These are the bad people that have no value, no added value at all. V'hainu d'shalchu mitam, and this is what they send from there, from Israel, the following statement, Libai rachamim itkalya al alya. The grapes should ask for mercy for the leaves, meaning, right? If it weren't for the leaves, lo mitkayim itkalya. The fruits would never survive. And this is what it's saying, that the Talmidei Chachamim should pray for the Amei Haaretz. Okay, they might not like them, or they might not agree with them, let's say. Maybe they do like them, but they don't necessarily agree with them in everything, and they're suspect of them in all sorts of ways, as we've seen throughout our Gemaras, but know that in the end they're protecting you. Okay, how are they protecting us? Right? How are they protecting the Talmidei Chachamim? Again, it's dangerous waters. look, one is that the Talmidei Chachamim are often learning in yeshiva, right? And the other people are sustaining, they're taking care of the streets and the roads and the city kind of things to make sure some people say they're feeding them, okay? They're providing them with food. Okay, I don't want to go take it to the place of big hot issue nowadays of Giyus Charedim, of having Charedim go into the army, right? To say that the Talmidei Chachamim aren't fighting, I don't think that you could say that here, and that the Amei Aretz are sustaining them and protecting them, in battle. I think that would be an unfair statement. I don't think that's really the way that the Gemara understood it. I think everyone's supposed to go out to war. I don't really see these huge exemptions that people are talking about, but what, and if they would try to claim that this is what it is, they're certainly not fulfilling this statement, which is pray for Rachamim for the Amei Aretz and appreciate that they're doing this for you, right? And unfortunately, in this big debate back and forth of yes, no, army, all that, there's very little respect one side for the other. But, the people who are claiming, well, they should do the fighting, we should get the benefits, well, then appreciate it, right? And be sympathetic or empathetic, okay? And that's obviously sorely missing. But this is a really good, important value of, even if you live in different parts of society and have different views and different ways of observing Judaism, right? Everyone should be appreciative of the others. Now, we do have the Reikanim, but those are, I think, the real, problematic characters in society that are destroying the society or just not helping society in any way. But here we have, all the different parts, and they should be working together and appreciating each other. Okay, so we finished with our 8 interpretations that we all got off on a tangent to because of this pasuk about Sarita im Elohim v'im Anashim, and the 2 great leaders are going to come, and then we got to the 3 great leaders from the Shlosha Sarigim, that there's always 2 at one time, sometimes in Babylonia, sometimes in Israel. So going back to this idea a little bit, we're now going to talk about the tzaddikim and the righteous people that came up also in the sugya. Okay, this is a pasuk in Hosea. It says, I'm going to purchase her for 15 kesef. V'chomer se'orim v'letach se'orim. That's 30 se'ah and another 15 se'ah. We're going to talk about this soon. Amar Rabbi Yochanan mishum Rabbi Shimon ben Yehoyada tzedek. Ein kira ela l'sham mechira. Shene'emar b'kivrei asher kariti li. Okay, this is in Yosef says about his father to Paro. That my father wanted, I would bury him there, but b'kivrei asher kariti lo, they say that I bought for him. Okay, and the kever that I bought for him. Anyway, so kira means to buy. So I purchased. This is in Hosea. It's about this man and his beloved. That he purchased her for 15 kesef and letach sorim and the chomer sorim and letach sorim, but to amounts of barley. But the analogy is that this whole prophecy is talking about the Jews and God and their relationship. And what it's saying is that kesef, so it's b'chamishasar that God acquired us. How did God acquire us? What's with 15 kasef? Chamishasar, zeh chamishasar b'Nisan. That's the 15th of Nisan. Sheboni galu Yisrael miMitzrayim. The Jews were redeemed from Egypt. Kesef elu tzadikim. V'cheinu omer tzror kesef lakach biyadi. So now they're going to say it was the 15th of Nisan God redeemed us. Why? Because of kesef. Kesef for the tzadikim. Because of the tzadikim, the righteous people, God took us out of Egypt. Now, we're going to say, how do we know that kesef is tzaddikim? Now, first of all, why is kesef tzaddikim? Seems weird. No, because kesef is valuable, tzaddikim are valuable. And they're going to take this pasuk in Mishlei, tzror kesef lakach biyado. It's a pasuk in Mishlei, he took this bag of money with him. The way that I interpret this pasuk allegorically is that God took out the tzaddikim from Israel before the first destruction of the temple happened. If you remember, there was this earlier galut of Yehoiachin, and they all left then, the important people, because God didn't want them to see the tragedy. Or people also say he killed them before. I think that's also what it's possibly referring to, that God made sure that he actually killed the tzaddikim before so they wouldn't have to suffer. Okay, but the point is that kesef is tzaddikim. Chomer se'orim v'letach se'orim, elu 45, we said that's 30 se'ah and 15. These are the 45 tzaddikim, sha'olam etkayem behem. Okay, usually we talk about lamid vav, there's 36 here, it talks about 45. And now, 45, notice it's 30 and 15. So that's the same 2/3 ratio we had before about the great people. So this could be the same thing here. Not sure where the bulk of them are. 30 in Israel, 15 in Babylonia, or the reverse. So now they're going to say, but then I looked at these psukim. Okay, so we'll read the psukim and then we'll explain them. First, I'm going to read you the first pasuk, which they actually quote only after, but it's important to understand in the context. We're in Zechariah, chapter 11, verse 12 and 13. Va'omar lehem, God says to the other nations, Im tov beinchem havu schari. Okay, if it's good for you, give me back what I gave you. V'im lo chadalu, and if not, stop. V'yishkalu et schari 30 kesef. Okay, this is basically God saying to the nations, you haven't done what I said, and I'm going to take back what I gave you, the salary I gave you. Vayomer Hashem elai, ashlichu ele yotzer, and then God said to me, it's the prophet talking, take this 30 kesef that they're giving back to you, put it in the yotzer, adal hayakal, asher yakartim alehem, ve'ekach 30 kesef. Okay, so basically he says, take them and put them in this yotzer, which we're going to talk about what it is in a minute. So what did I do? I took them, I put it in God's house, El hayotzer. The yotzer is the otzar, in the treasure house. Okay, so he put it in the house of God, in the mikdash. So Heveomir, what is this? So that's the pasuk they're quoting right now, the very end. Heveomir, so what do you see from here? 30 be'eretz Yisrael, v'chamisha sarkan. It's 15 in Babylonia, because the 30 kesef, or the 30 tzadkim, were taken there. Amar Abaye, v'rubayim mishtachei bebeit knishta detute apta. And most of them are sitting in the Beit Knesset under the upper level, meaning they're hiding. They're not noticeable. These are humble people. You don't know them. They're not famous, important people that everybody knows. These tzaddikim are kind of hidden. They're humble, and because of that, nobody really knows who they are. And that's what it says. This is the beginning pasuk. Havu schari v'im lo chadalu v'yishkalu et schari 30 kesef. What does this mean? Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Elu 30 tzadikei umot ha'olam. These were actually tzadikim from the other nations. She'umot ha'olam mitkaimim alehem. That the other nations were surviving based on them. In other words, God was saying, you guys are all surviving because you have these 30 tzadikim that I gave you as salary. I'm taking them back now. You don't deserve them. Ulamar, he understands this differently. Elu 30 mitzvot. These are 30 mitzvot that the Bnei Noach took upon themselves. Okay, we usually have them as 7. Some people explain, right? Rashi even says, I don't know where this comes from. Lo nit parshu, this wasn't explained. Some people think it's just they accepted them, not that they were commanded to do them. Okay, however we explain it, there's other explanations as well. Like maybe one of them is dinim, courts, and that's the 24 avot nizikim that came up in Bava Kama, and then there's the other 6. Anyway, it's unclear. But in the end, they only do 3 things. Here are the 3 things they do. They don't write a ketubah if they have a wedding between 2 males. They don't weigh they don't sell humans, okay, cannibals. They don't sell humans in the shuk. And the other is they have respect for the Torah. What this means is a good question. Some people say the fact that the Christians rely on the Old Testament for proofs of their religion, that's showing kavod for the Torah. It's possible. I don't know. Anyway, different interpretations there. Ve'ino noheg ba'of. Okay, now we're moving on back to our topic. So we finished with that, all the Agadah about the story of Yaakov and the angel. And now, which obviously makes sense this year because we're talking about the Gid Anasheh. Now we're back to the Gid Anasheh that we learned in the Mishnah. It's not in birds. Or we learned in a Braita, maybe. I forget. No, I think it was in the Mishnah, right? It's, Behema, but not Ba'of. Okay, I think we also saw it in a Braita. But wait, what was the whole thing about the oaf? It doesn't have this kaf hayarech, right? So they say, what do you mean? We see it has, right, this meat around the gid, the sciatic nerve. So we see it does have. So they say, it has, it's just not rounded. Kaf is a spoon, it's rounded. Remember, that's what it said in the pasuk, a kaf hayarech. By Rabbi Yirmiyah, classic Rabbi Yirmiyah question. What if there is a bird that has a rounded flesh around it? Or, what if you have a beima v'lo agil, and it's not rounded? What do we do? Do we go by each specific animal or bird and say, oh, this one has it, we're going to say it's forbidden? Batar mineazlina. Do we follow its type? Only animals, no birds. Teku. Classic Rabbi Yirmiyah questions are left without answers. Noheg b'shlil. Now the Mishnah had said, and we actually mentioned this when we said it, which is Noheg b'shlil, and Rabbi Yehuda Omer, no Noheg b'shlil. Okay, the Gid Anasheh is in the shlil. According to Rabbi Yehuda, no, it's not. Okay, meaning if the mother, remember, it's in utero, and you find, right, let's say you take out the animal from in utero, is the Gid HaNasheh forbidden or not? It wasn't born, okay? So, once it's born, obviously it's its own being and all that. The question is when it's 9 months and not born, is that considered its own being also? Okay, so, and this comes up in other machlokot, and we're going to see them. Amar Shmuel. Now, then it said, okay, so it said, Rabbi Yehuda said, Eino noheg b'shlil. Okay, there's no prohibition. Now, if you remember, what did we say? Tanakama thinks that the ubar is not part of, once it's fully grown, it's not considered a limb of the mother, and that's why it has the deen of Gid HaNasheh. It's its own separate thing. Rabbi Yehuda said it's just like a limb of the mother, so we don't view the Gid HaNasheh as a separate part. We view the whole fetus as a limb of the mother. Then it said b'chel bo mutar, and we said at the time that it wasn't clear. Is this referring to Rabbi Yehuda? It's not in a shlil, and the chelev is also permitted, or is it according to everybody and maybe talking about something else? So that's what we're going to deal with right now. Amar Shmuel b'chel bo mutar l'divrei hakol. Shmuel says that line chelev mutar is according to everybody. Now, what chelev are we talking about? Chelbo demai ilema de shlil. If it's referring back to the shlil, but saying everyone agrees that the chelev of the shlil is permitted. But they have a machloket about the chelev. Ditanya noheg b'shlil v'chabo asul divrei Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda omer eno noheg b'shlil v'chabo mutar. Well, we see here this machloket Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda, who are the two that have the machloket. Is an ubar part of the mother, or is it its own separate being? And Rabbi Meir says, who's on the other side, he says it's noheg b'shlil. The Gid HaNasheh is forbidden, and the chelev is forbidden. And Rabbi Yehuda says it's not in a shlil, and the chelev is also permitted. No isur Gid HaNasheh, no chelev. So, what do you see? They have a machloket. So you can't say that when Shmuel says divrei hakol, it's talking about this. V'amar Rabbi Lazar, amar Rabbi Yoshaya, and also about this, Rabbi Lazar explained in the name of Rabbi Yoshaya, machloket beben tisha achai. So we explained it in the Mishnah, and I explained it today, that the machloket is about when it's 9 months old. Now, Alach Rabbi Meir l'shitato. Rabbi Meir was according to his opinion. Rabbi Yehuda l'shitato, and they fit in with their opinions about the whole machloket of the ben pekuah. Remember when the mother's slaughtered, if the fetus inside was 9 months old, do we count it as the ben pekuah, that it's permitted by the mother because it's just part of the mother's body, or no? Right? Rabbi Meir said no. Okay. Anyway, it's clear it's not that. Ela chelbo de gid. Okay. Well, if we're going to say it's the chelev of the Gid HaNasheh, the fat that's around that, hamiflag pligiba. Also that there's a machloket. And we can't say, Shmuel said, the divrei hakol, it's not a problem. So, Titania, how do we know this? It says in a Braita, Gid HaNasheh mechatet acharav b'chol makom shehu. You have to take out, when you take out the Gid HaNasheh, you have to take out all the fat around it, and like all down to the source. V'chotech sham nomi ikaron. You take out mechatet acharav b'chol makom shehu. You take out the whole Gid, and then you're chotech sham nomi ikaro. You have to take out all the fat from the root. That's divrei Rabbi Meir. That sounds like the fat is forbidden. Rabbi Yehuda omer gomemo mashofi. You just level it with the flesh. You don't have to go deep down and take out all the fat, because he's obviously not so worried about the fat. So now, what do you see? Still machloket, and we're trying to find something they agree on. Well, maybe you could say lo olam chabot digid. Let's go with the second option. Umo de Shmuel de Rabbi Meir midrabanan aser. But Shmuel agrees that according to Rabbi Meir, it's actually forbidden on a rabbinic level. In other words, on a Torah level, the chelev is mutar. When the Mishnah says, when Shmuel says, everyone agrees the chelev is permitted, he means on a Torah level. Okay? Rabbi Meir forbids it on a rabbinic level and makes you take out all the fat because by the rabbis forbade it. How do we know this? Well, we're going to prove it from here. Ditanya, v'shamno mutal, v'Yisrael kadoshim nohagiu bo isul. Its fat is permitted, the chelev of the gid, but of the sciatic nerve, right, the fat around it. But Yisrael Kadoshim, the holy Jews, have a minhag not to eat it. And that's Rabbi Meir. Now, how do we know it's Rabbi Meir? So they're going to say, my love Rabbi Meir here, the Amar Mutar min Torah v'asur mitrabanan, right? Let's explain. That must be Rabbi Meir, who says it's permitted by the Torah, but the rabbis forbade, or the people, forbade, and then it became forbidden by rabbinic law. But Mimai, how do you know that? Dilma Rabbi Yehuda, maybe it's Rabbi Yehuda's position. Aval, Rabbi Meir, midoraita nami aser. Maybe Rabbi Meir thinks it's forbidden by Torah law. So they say lo sagadata. No, I don't think that's the case. I really think Rabbi Meir only forbids it on a rabbinic level. How do we know this? Titania, as it says in the Braita, the following: Gid HaNasheh mechatet acharav b'kol makom shehu. You have to get out all of it, right, wherever it is. Visham no mutal, but its fat is permitted. Now, man shamat leidi lechatita. Who's the one who says you have to take out everything around it, right? Get it from the source. That's Rabbi Meir. And yet, what does it say here? Ka'amar sham no mutal. And yet it says the shuman is permitted. So what do you see here? The shuman is permitted according to Rabbi Meir, and only by Torah, by rabbinic law, or the people, nahagu bo isur, right? Really by minhag. Okay? And then we resolve that issue that really Shmuel says, kabol, the divrei hakol, it's the chalev of the Gid and Hashem. Now we're going to end with this machloket. Amar Rav Yitzchak bar Shmuel bar Marta Amarav, lo asra Torah ela knot shebo. Now we're going to see that according to this opinion, they only forbade the sinews that are coming out of the main sinew, okay? Meaning not the Gid and Hashem itself. And that's because the Gid and Hashem itself is not edible. What we forbid is the soft sinews that are coming out of the big sinew, okay? And that even though we thought all along it was the Gid and Hashem, according to Rav Yitzchak bar Marta bar Shmuel bar Marta, in the name of Rav, it only forbade the parts that are coming out of it. And we'll look at the translation to say it's a little bit better. But they say the tendril-like nerve fibers that branch off and run along the sciatic nerve under the flesh. Okay? Now, Ula disagrees. And this is how we paskin, which is why you might be surprised by this statement in the name of Rav. Ula amar etzu. It's like a tree, meaning it's not edible, but haTorah chiva alav. But the Torah anyway forbade it. It doesn't matter if it's edible or not edible. That's what the Torah forbade. That's what's forbidden, not the tendril-like nerve fibers that are coming out of it. Amar Abai kavatei de Ula mistabra. It makes more sense to say like Ula de Amar Rav Sheshet Amar Rav Asi chutin shebachelav asurim ve'en chayavin alehem. Okay, Rav Sheshet said in the name of Rav Asi, the chutin. Now we're going to try to prove it from this. It's a little different, but the chutin, the veins inside the chaylev are forbidden, or come out of the chaylev. Ve'en chayavin alehem. They're forbidden, but you're not actually liable for them. They're not part of the chaylev. So what does that prove? Well, alma chaylev amar Rachmana v'lo chutin. Torah forbade chaylev, not the veins that come out of it. And therefore, hachanami, we're going to say the same thing here. Gid amar Rachmana v'lo knok. Okay, so the nerves that come out of it are not what's forbidden. Okay, now we're going to end with a gufa. Okay, we're going to say, let's go more in depth into this last thing that we just said. Amar Rav Sheshet Amar Rav Asi, chutim shebachelav asurin, be'en chayavin alehem. Okay, that's what we just saw. Shebakuliya asurim ve'en chayavin alehem. Now, in the kidney, also there are these. Okay, again, I'm going to go back to the English. Okay, in the kidneys, we're going to say here that the strands of veins that are in the kidneys are forbidden, but you're not liable for eating them. Okay, same idea here. Loven kuliya. Now, the white fat of the kidney. There's a machloket. Rebbe v'Rabbi Chia. Chad asar v'chad shari. One forbade and one permitted. Rabba mimartele. Now, what did they do with the fat here in the kidneys? It's the same thing as before. We had this machloket. So, Rabba mimartele, he goes in and takes all of it out, scoops it out completely. Rabbi Yochanan also mimartele. But Rabbi Asi gaimle, he just cut it off and that was it. He didn't go scooping out all the extra fat. So, Amar Amaye, kavatei de Rabbi Asi mistabra. Okay, it seems more like Rabbi Asi. And then we're going to quote a statement in the name of Rav Yehuda and the name of Shmuel. And we're going to see that, and that's going to be next class. Okay, so we're going to stop here. I'm going to just review. We started with all these drashot of the angel that we continue from the previous daf, and basically showing how Yaakov won this fight with the angel, came out on top, and he was kind of promised, there was this promise he was going to have Elohim and Anashim, but it was also a bit of a bittersweet because it's showing they're going to end up in Galut. From there we go to Yosef, which, by the way, I think there's a connection here because Yosef goes to Galut. Basically, he ends up in Egypt in a jail, and while he's there, he sees this, right? He hears the dream of the butler, and then gets a whole description, right? We have this description there is really supposed to be some sort of chizuk, strengthening for Yosef, and we had a whole long discussion about all the different types of explanations and what was supposed to give Yosef hope while he was in jail there. Past, future, present, right? People worshiping God, God helping us, all sorts of different, or the Jewish people as a whole working together, which is a really important message especially for nowadays. Okay, then we got to this whole thing about the tzaddikim, how the tzaddikim are the ones who keep the world going. Where are they? Are they more in Babylonia? Are they more in Israel? And where they come from, right? In a sense, God took them back from the Gentiles that were they were helping the Gentiles to survive. God took them and said, no, you lost your chance. I'm giving them all to the Jews and how they're humble people and all that. And then we get back to this whole issue if it's not in the oath. Why not? Because of the shape of it's not the kaf hayarech From there we got to Rabbi Yuria's question, what if it is rounded? And there, what if it's not rounded in an animal? We were left with the question. And then we had this line of Noheg b'shliel but chalbo mutar, and then Shmuel basically separated that from Rabbi Yehuda, said it's not Rabbi Yehuda, it's everyone's opinion, and we had to figure out. In the end we said it's the chelev of the gid, and everyone agrees because even Rabbi Meir, who forbids, only forbids it on a rabbinic level. And then we got to this other thing about the whether it's the gid itself that's forbidden according to Ula, or the knokno, just the nerves that come out of the gid that are forbidden because they're much more edible and have some taste in them. Okay, and with that we end today's daf, wishing everyone a good day.